So we're talking about logic, okay? And logic is something that a lot of people don't think about when they think about geometry, but it is a thing, okay? So if we click over here, our next slide, we talk about conditional statements. There's three things you got to know on this page. A conditional statement is an if-then statement, okay? Like if I go to school, then I get really tired and want to take a nap. Okay, that is so true this year. All right, or if I go to the mall, then I must be in big trouble with my wife because I never go to the mall. Okay, or if an animal meows, then it is a cat. Okay, so all of these things, those are if-then, these are conditional statements. Okay, now that's one thing you need to know. If-then is a conditional statement. Hypothesis is notated by a P. Conclusion is notated by a Q. You don't ever have to write those words again, okay? Hypothesis is P, conclusion is Q. The hypothesis is in between if and then. It's not if and then, but it's the stuff in between it. An animal meows is the hypothesis. The conclusion is the stuff after then. It is a cat. That's the conclusion. Not then it is a cat, just it is a cat. All right? So the three things. Conditional statements are if then. That's one thing. The hypothesis is P and the conclusion is Q. And the hypothesis is between if and then, and the conclusion is after then. Okay, those are the three things you got to know. All right, we good on that? Makes sense? All right, here are some other types. Now, this is shorthand for conditional statement. Okay, that reads if P, then Q. Or if P happens, then Q happens. Okay, that's what that reads as. This next one, the converse, is Q, then P. Okay, on converse, what they do is they take the P and the Q and they flip them. So you end up with Q, then P. That is read if Q happens, then P happens. This arrow is then. Then on this next one, if not P happens, the inverse is where we make both of these things nots. Okay, we put the word not into the sentence. If not P happens, then not Q happens. Okay, and the contrapositive is when we do both of these things together. We start with this one, we flip them and get this one, then we make them the opposite and we get that one. So if not Q, then not P. Now I'm going to show you some examples, okay, and it'll make more sense, I think. All right, so here we have this. It says P, then Q. That is the conditional statement. If it rained, then the ground got wet. Well, the converse of that would be Q, then P. It's where you take the hypothesis and the conclusion and you swap them. So instead of if it rained, the ground got wet, it's if the ground got wet, then it rained. All you do is flip them. For converse, you just flip. Okay? For inverse, it says if you have a Sprite, then you have root beer. I don't understand that statement. I don't know why you have to have a root beer if you have a Sprite, but whatever. Okay? If you have a Sprite, then you have a root beer. If you negate them both, if you put the word not in there, if you do not have a Sprite, then you do not have a root beer. Okay, that is the negation of the sentence. All right, so that's how that works. You either put the word not in, or if the word not was already there, we'd take it out. Okay, and then down here on contrapositive, it starts off, if 15 is an odd number, then 15 is a prime number. And then it says, if 15 is not a prime number, then 15 is not an odd number. What they did was they took these, they flipped them, and they had to make them the opposite. So it ends up being like this. If the opposite of this happens, then the opposite of this happens. So if 15 is not a prime number, then 15 is not an odd number. Okay, so that is how that works. It's if the opposite of this happens, then the opposite of that happens. So you got to flip them and make them the opposite. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples for you. All right, here's the first one, and I made this yesterday. It says, if today is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. Now, please understand also, guys, we are not talking about fact versus fiction. We're not talking about true versus false. We're just talking straight up about conditional statements, converse, inverse, and contrapositive. How do you write them? How do you find them? And later on, we'll talk about whether it's true or not. Okay? So the conditional statement, if today is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday, right here. If today is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. That's the conditional statement. The converse of this, see, converse is where you take Q and P. You take your P and your Q and you swap them. And so instead of saying if today is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday, you say if tomorrow is Tuesday, then today is Monday. You just take this part and you swap places with it. Okay, to get the inverse, I literally copied this first line, see, because it's P then Q, and this is P then Q, but with knots. I pasted it here, and then I put the word not in there in both places. If today is not Monday, then tomorrow is not Tuesday. For the last one, I could have copied and pasted it, or I could have started with P then Q, the very top line. If today is Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. And then I would have had to flip it, and then I would have had to make them opposite. But since I've already done this, I've already got it flipped right here. Okay, so why not just go ahead? Why can't I click on that? That's weird. There we go. So why not just take this, it's already flipped from the original, write it down here, and then put the knots in. Squiggly Q and squiggly P mean not. So if tomorrow is not Tuesday, then today is not Monday. That's what that becomes. Okay, so rather than start here and start all over, I'm already halfway done because I have this. So I could just copy it down here and put the word not in there. All right, and then lastly, you had to, on this one, we had to write a conditional statement given that statement. All dogs go to heaven. So what I did in this class, what we came up with was, if you are a dog, then you will go to heaven. That's our conditional statement. Some other people came up with, if you are a dead dog, then you will go to heaven. What is with that bell? That is so weird. If you, let's see, was another one somebody came up with. If it is a dog, then when it dies, it will go to heaven. It's a lot of stuff. They added some stuff that's not necessary. If you are a dog, then you will go to heaven is perfectly good. All right, so to do the converse again, you take what's here in the conditional statement and you flip them. So instead of if you are a dog, then you will go to heaven, the converse is if you go to heaven, then you are a dog. Okay. The inverse is where we take this statement, the conditional statement, and we copy it. We copy this whole statement down here to right here, and then we put the word not into both places. If you are not a dog, then you will not go to heaven. And then finally, this last one again, you're supposed to start with this one and then flip it and then make them the opposite. But again, we've already flipped it right here. So we've already flipped it, just bring that down, and instead of if you go to heaven, it should say if you do not go to heaven. And instead of then you are a dog, then you are not a dog is what it should say. Okay, and that is it. That is it for conditional statements. Now, I'm going to go through yesterday's work since y'all weren't here, and I'm going to show y'all yesterday's work, and I'm going to do it all the way through for you. You do not have to do this. Okay, so I'm up here. Or not. Hang on. La-di-da, that does not want to work. There we go. Starting to move. There we go. All right, so if Lindsay studies for her test, then she will pass. We want to know what the hypothesis is, what the conclusion is. The hypothesis, again, is everything between if and then. Everything between if and then. So, what? Oh, there we go. Lindsay studies for her test. The conclusion is everything after then. She will pass. There we go. All right, she will pass. On this one, if Ben speeds on his motorcycle, then he will get a traffic ticket. So, between if and then, Ben speeds on his motorcycle. I almost said sickle, his motorcycle. And then the conclusion is he will get a traffic ticket. Everything after then is the conclusion. Okay. I'm going to come down here. I'm not going to bother typing all of this out. But, on this, actually, I guess I could. It's not that big of a deal. We're supposed to write a conditional statement. We have the hypothesis. So all we need is an if and a then, comma, then. And we have our statement. If this happens, this is the hypothesis. It goes between if and then. So if you work 2 hours overtime on your job, comma, then you will earn time and a half on your paycheck, period. All right, that's what you do. That's how you write an if then. Now, on this next one, I'm not going to actually type these out. I'm just going to talk you through them. So, number 4, 5, and 6. No, numbers 5, 6, and 7 are just like the all dogs go to heaven one. Okay, so we said if you are a dog, then you go to heaven. Well, on this one, on number 5, if you are a quadrilateral, then you have 4 sides. Number 6, if you are a cat, then you chase mice. And number 7, if you're a vertical angle, then you are congruent. Now, you don't know what a vertical angle is probably, but that is a true statement, okay? If you're a vertical angle, then you're congruent. Congruent means the same as, okay? The difference between 5, 6, and 7 and 4 and 8 is that on 5, 6, and 7, there's only 2 things in each sentence. Number 5 has quadrilaterals and 4 sides. 6 has cats and mice, chase mice. And number 7 is vertical angles and congruent. But number 4 has 3 things. It's talking about a triangle, it's talking about 2 equal angles, and it's talking about isosceles. And down here on number 8, same thing. It's got students, they go to school, and they do it on weekdays. Okay? So for 4, what we're going to do is the first 2 things go together in a situation like this. So we would say a triangle with 2 equal sides. If it is a triangle with 2 equal sides, then it is isosceles. That says angles, doesn't it? If it is a triangle with 2 equal angles, then it is isosceles. That's the conditional statement for that one. And down here, if a student goes to school, then it must be a weekday. That's how that works. Okay, down on, that's not us either. We get out at 11:20. We got 15 minutes. Oh man, I thought my timer, my camera was going to stop, but it didn't. All right, so I'm going to come down here to 9 through 12. Come on. We're supposed to write the converse. Again, I'm not going to write them because I'm trying to show people this at the same time I talk about it. So just listen. It says, if you live to an old age, then you eat nano yogurt. The converse of that would be when you flip the 2. So if you eat nano yogurt, then you live to an old age. That's converse. For this one, if you take pictures of your family with a Blinko camera, then you care about your family. Okay? So the converse of that would be if you care about your family, then you take pictures of your family with a Blinko camera. It's kind of silly, but that's the way that goes. Okay? Number 11, if you drive a superb car, then you'll get good mileage. So the converse of that would be if you get good mileage, then you drive a superb car. You just take these two things and you flip them. Number 12, if you use dust and roast, you'll make a better chicken dinner. I think that's making fun of, what is that, shake and bake. I think that's what they're doing there. That's kind of funny. So if you flip those, it would say, if you make a better chicken dinner, then you must have used dust and roast. That's hard to say. All right, the next part is the inverse. The inverse is the easiest of all of them because all you do is make the statements the opposite of what they are. All right, so if you use charm face powder, then you will be beautiful. You put knots in both of those. If you do not use charm face powder, then you will not be beautiful. Please don't change words like beautiful to ugly. That's not how this works, guys. All right, so please leave the words alone and just add the word not or take the word not away. I got number 14. If you buy gold toothpaste, then your children will brush longer. If you don't buy gold toothpaste, then your children will not brush longer. All you do is put the word not in both of these. When you serve imported sparkling water, it shows you have good taste. When you don't serve imported sparkling water, it shows that you don't have good taste. Again, don't try to change this to bad taste. Just put the word not in. And number 16, the man who wears Curtis's clothes is well dressed. I think it's supposed to be an apostrophe there. So it would be the man who doesn't wear Curtis's clothes is not well dressed. That's weird, but that's the truth. That's what it would be. And then finally, contrapositive, you got to flip them and make them the opposite, which means we say if the opposite of this, then the opposite of that. So if you don't send trademark cards, then you don't care enough to send the best. On this one, if you, see here it says won't. So you would take the won't out, the negative out. So it's say if you have body odor, then you don't use trickle deodorant. See, the opposite of you won't have body odor is you will have body odor, or you do have body odor. So if you do have body odor, then you don't use trickle deodorant. If you brush with bright, then your teeth will be pearly white. Oh, that's irritating. I hate rhymes. So if the opposite of this, so if your teeth will not be pearly white or are not pearly white, then you did not brush with bright. And finally, if you want a good job, then you'll get a high school diploma. You would flip them, and it would be if you don't get a high school diploma, then you won't get a good job, or you can't get a good job, or something like that. Okay, so that's a lot of examples. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps.